Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the video. I'm GetGoodGuy, and today the title likely invites many people to comment the whole of Battlefield 5 is a failed experiment. Well, yeah, well, well, maybe. There's evidence for that so far, but there's still some time for things to change. Maybe. I do certainly see why some people would think that though, but today isn't about that. No, today is about why I believe the experimental time to kill, which has been rolled out in BF5, is a failed experiment. But, and I shouldn't even need to say this, but please don't go and berate individual developers on Twitter. They're just people, often being told what to do by people above them. Insulting them is not the way forwards, nor is insulting me, so please be respectful with your feedback. Now, before anyone complains about the intro being too long, just take a look at the length of the video. There's clearly a lot that needs to be set up, prefaced, and clarified in order to convey the correct message to you guys and avoid the jumping to conclusions and false narratives that I often see in the comments. And then finally, it's totally okay to have a different opinion to mine. If you enjoy the slower time to kill, then more power to you. Opinions and perceptions always differ from person to person. I'm simply going to lay out why I dislike this experimental time to kill, why I believe the vast majority of other people dislike it, and what other problems exist around this issue. Because it's not all as simple as just an in-game mechanic tweak. So, I recently made a video before the TTK change, which went into detail why I think now isn't the right time to do this, as well as many other problems such as poor communication, poor implementation, and a general sense that this game isn't ready for public consumption. Something that I'm considering making a dedicated video for soon. Anyway, that original TTK opinion video will be linked in the description and my pinned comment if you wish to watch it, as a lot of the information in that informs what I'm putting across to you today. So having now played with the new TTK, I can say that I wanted to be wrong about what I predicted in the other video, as did many people who watched it. Some even said it was pointless making those assertions without playing the new TTK. Well, unfortunately, I was essentially correct about all points, at least from my perspective and that of the mass feedback I've seen so far. I feel vindicated, but I feel sad, because although the TTK changes don't make absolutely everything worse, there are some improvements. Overall, it's a straight downgrade for me. It's a much worse and less balanced experience. And I played with 3 other people of a range of abilities on this new TTK. One end of the spectrum being my friend who was pretty good at BF1 and FPS games in general, and at the other end was my girlfriend who only picked up a controller for the first time a couple of years ago and just plays here and there. And none of my 3 friends had fun. They essentially just felt like, what is this? Why have they done this? This isn't entertaining to play. Regardless of ability level, they thought it was bad. And that's the dominant feedback on my videos at the minute as well. The vast majority of people didn't want this, and they certainly don't want it to stay. Now, I have seen word from DICE that they're taking on board feedback and looking at data, and that things can and likely will change. I know that won't cut much ice with some people unless there are changes, but I thought it was worth mentioning. Right now, there's no need to assume that the game will remain this way. I certainly hope it won't, but we'll have to wait and see. So why do I feel like that? Well, many reasons. Making one mechanic change, especially one as important as time to kill in a first-person shooter, can impact a vast array of other factors which may not initially be obvious, although some are extremely obvious, and I'm surprised they either weren't considered or were just ignored. Let's open with the issue of very often now taking damage in 1v1 fights due to their extended nature. Even though the enemy that you kill may still feel like the time to die is too fast, which I'll come to properly later on, they will often land damage on you whether that happens or not, because it simply takes longer to kill them now. Of course, there are still times where you just blast an unaware enemy down, and sometimes the time to die issue is so bad that they don't get to shoot back, but much more often now you will actually be significantly damaged even when you have a clear advantage. In a game with attrition, this makes winning your next gunfight extremely difficult. If you aren't a medic, you only have one heal pouch until you go and resupply. Without that pouch, it feels like it takes an age to heal up, and the amount that you can actually heal is limited. So your next gunfight, you might be at say half health, so even if you get the drop on the enemy, the extended TTK often causes you to lose. And now the enemy who just killed you is in the position you just found yourself in, rinse and repeat back and forth. That is unless you want to constantly run back to an aid station, which also isn't fun. And this makes flanking much less viable and enjoyable. This makes the lack of medics due to poor SMGs even more felt, which I'll also get to later on, and this can make for a very passive experience overall. The assumption being that a slower timed kill will make more people move and be more aggressive, right? Well, no, wrong. At least from my perspective, because it depends how slow that timed kill is, how the maps are designed, how visibility is, how the audio cues are, and so much more in the game you're playing. And Battlefield 5 works against this. I'll explain why. I've wanted the maps to be tweaked pretty much since launch. I want the visibility of stationary and prone enemies to be improved, and I want the audio cues fixed, because currently getting from point A to point B on a lot of maps is an absolute trial. Far more difficult than it needs to be, or even should be. One of the things that people want is to not be melted by out of sight enemies all the time, and I totally understand that. But look at it this way, people lying down still have enough of an advantage, plus accuracy if using say a bipod, that TTK almost makes no difference a lot of the time in that situation. The map design means there are still many scenarios where you have to move across essentially open ground, and it's now harder to kill those prone or out of sight enemies from your perspective in terms of bullets to kill. Now you do have a little more time to reach cover, etc., which is definitely a good thing, but overall, realistically, I don't feel it's really helped. In fact, in some ways, it's worse. You can't turn and blast someone down now who's lying down off in the distance, but they can still lie there and beam you for say an extra bullet or two as you try to reach some semblance of cover. Basically, the time to kill doesn't change that situation. If someone lies down out of the way, they still kill you, and you have even less chance of picking them off most of the time because you can't take advantage of just being a better shot and using the TTK. And the attrition system means you're probably going to die soon anyway, even if you do reach cover. Couple that with the visibility issues and the still terrible audio problems, and you just feel, as I said, helpless trying to push across the vast array of pretty open areas on a lot of maps. DICE want people to not die so quickly, right? They think this is pushing people away from playing the game. Well, I think a far more sensible plan of action is to fix the netcode issues with time to death, tweak weapons for better balance, and then see if time to kill alterations are necessary. As stated, I said when the game first released, please add more lanes and routes to move around the map and push objectives. Map design has a profound effect on how a game plays. If you have huge open areas and a huge amount of areas around it for people to lie down or camp in, of course people are going to die quickly and often because they're going to try and push up, and some people lying in the bushes around there are going to shoot them down. That kind of thing is Battlefield 5 in a nutshell right now. So now what? You lose the initial push in a game, say, and often your team will now just sit back. You can't push on your own. If you do, you'll get destroyed, and you often lose the game regardless. You cannot use your tactics combined with superior gunplay to take advantage of a faster time to kill and just take people down and move up the map. So perhaps rather than messing with time to kill less than 2 months after release, there should be a focus on altering the huge amount of issues that the player base is actually complaining about, not changing one that's been massively praised so far. Anyway, let's move on from here. How about the narrative that TTK and TTD are closely linked and therefore this change could improve the time to death issues? Well, time to death and time to kill are supposed to be the same, or at least as close to the same as possible. The problem is that they aren't in Battlefield 5. There's a definite netcode issue which causes players to not be notified of taking damage properly, hence super fast or even one frame deaths. Changing the time to kill doesn't fix an unrelated bug. Yes, it makes it take longer to kill people, but if a bug is still in place, then the actual problem isn't being solved. There are still some one frame deaths, and lots of deaths still feel too fast. So even though you may get more of a chance to fight back sometimes, it doesn't fix the problem. There's still an advantage for the person benefiting from the bug. If anything, I actually notice more instances of shooting first and dying now. The extended time to kill merely highlights the injustice of the TTD bug even more so because I had more time to notice it. I can get my shots in first, I can stay on target, and I'll still die sometimes because the game isn't registering damage properly on the other end. I know DICE are testing the netcode and are hoping to fix the one frame death issue. This would be excellent if they can manage it and will improve the game a lot. But also keep in mind that it won't affect the problems listed before this section or a lot of what I still have to cover. Regardless, a time to death bug should be a priority fix over any time to kill changes. You can't adequately gauge what the best time to kill is when you have a time to death bug. I think that's simple and not really something that can be argued with effectively. Moving on, multi-kills at close to medium range are now much more rare. You can be an infinitely better shot than the enemy, but if you see two or more at once, you're probably going to die, even if you have the drop on them sometimes. The time to kill is just too long. Also, you might not even have enough ammo to kill multiple enemies because the TTK shift came in without any weapon rebalancing, so you still have the same ammo capacities. So the Gewehr 43 now requires 4 body shots, for example. Well, it only has 10 rounds per reload, so good luck to you. This applies to many other weapons, to the extent that I actually started using a self-sladder 1916 purely because I didn't want to reload all the time and get caught out if I saw multiple people. This is why blanket changes like this often don't pan out. It wipes away all the nuances and specifically designed aspects of the weapons and just smashes a whole new variable on top that wasn't a consideration in their design in the first place. I assume this time to kill will be altered, but if not, do we need sweeping weaponry balancing again? On top of the ones that already weren't well balanced before. And even if this TTK is tweaked, that still might end up being the case to some extent. This is also why I don't support rolling out this experimental timed kill to the whole game except for one conquest playlist. It forces people to play an experiment that wasn't asked for or well designed. Do your experiment if you want to. Do your experiment if you need to. I support your attempts to improve the game, but why not in a community test environment? Why not in one specific playlist? Or why not for certain players here and there with a warning about it before the game starts and a reward for participating? Really anything other than just slapping it over the whole experience that people only purchased a few weeks ago. At least DICE have now altered their stance to providing all of the modes for both TTKs, which is nice for people that like the original feel of the game. So that's cool, although it does now absolutely split the player base even more so, which is foolish. And if enough players really don't like the new TTK, then I don't know how much information they're going to get, because people now just won't play the modes that have that TTK in it. So it's just a poor solution all round, but I'll take whatever I can get right now. Let's focus on the positives there. Anyway, to continue with the annoying issues, I found myself heading back to grab ammo so damn often. It was invasive, frustrating, and totally unnecessary. Hamada front lines, stalker to flag, want to push out, teamers being passive, huge open areas to cross, going back for ammo again and again and again. It's just not fun, not even slightly. And to head back to weapons being specifically affected, SMGs. They're bad. Statistically bad. They feel like pea shooters. Their stats make them inferior. The map design makes them weak. Their recent buff is essentially negated by this experimental TTK, and before anyone tells me they can still do well with an SMG, they got this score or that score, that's not the point. I'm not saying they're unusable. I'm saying they're comparatively bad, and that's made worse by this TTK. Because this TTK doesn't consider the weapon balance already in place. As I said in the tweet recently, I literally have a video of me going 14-6 and finishing second on the team with just a cricket bat, no gun. That doesn't make the cricket bat a good weapon. It's anecdotal evidence and it's essentially worthless. I'll link to that video in the description and my pinned comment if I remember to and you want proof. If I don't remember to do that, then it's on my channel somewhere, feel free to go and have a look. Oh, and I can combine a lot of my points here. So SMGs are weak when coupled with the map design and their statistical performance, which makes many people avoid playing medic, which feeds into the TTK and attrition issues I mentioned earlier, which makes the attrition design not work and the TTK problem even worse. And then there's the lack of ammo due to requiring more bullets to kill, which can go as high as 9 for an SMG now. So now people don't want to even try to engage at range with an SMG because they'll be wasting ammo for likely no kills. Plus they don't dominate at close quarters against a lot of things anyway, which makes for one huge mess of nothing working properly. This is why weapon tweaks are better than a sudden TTK shift before the weapons have even been properly balanced and nobody asked for a TTK shift. The knock-on effect is just so negative and wide-ranging. By the way, the self-loading rifles of the recon class are now absolutely atrocious by comparison with other weapons. They're just awful. Oh, but sidearms seemingly weren't changed, or if they were, it was seemingly not by very much, which is odd, like really strange, almost like it was treated as if why bother as they aren't primary weapons, but they are still weapons, and the revolver is now nasty by comparison, still a 2-shot kill at close quarters. I genuinely felt like it was a better option sometimes than using many primary weapons. It was weird not to include them in these changes. But headshots overall weren't changed, they still do the same damage, and this has pros and cons. It continues to reward accuracy, even more so than before, which is definitely a good thing. But it's far harder to hit specific accurate shots like that on console than on PC, so that creates an even wider disparity in terms of potential performance based around mechanics from platform to platform. And lucky headshots will be even more annoying now, although that's just a minor thing, and also a part of FPS gaming in general, so I'll just let that one go. But the headshots being the same does mean that the bolt action rifles of the recon class are better with this experimental TTK, because recons can now take more damage than before, while still putting people down with one headshot. Same for shotguns. Now where snipers are concerned, I don't know if this will be a problem on PC with the precision of a mouse. Maybe, maybe not. I play on console, so I don't know. I think the snipers maybe felt weak on PC before, according to some people anyway, although some will obviously also disagree with that, PC players can let me know. But for consoles, I'm not worried about them being overly lethal. It feels pretty tough to land the required shots anyway, and I feel a headshot should be rewarded. It might just bring recons in line now with where they should have been in the first place. But it also might cause more people to select recon and slow the game down by just sitting at the edge of the map and stuff. I have found that happening so far a bit more, which would be a shame if it continues, as it just becomes so passive. But anyway, with all of that said, you might exclaim, but this is just an experiment. Why are people so mad? Well, I think it's because essentially the community felt like it didn't ask for this. They in fact heavily praised the TTK and overall gunplay as a heavy majority. And this is being implemented due to data numbers regarding player counts, which DICE are interpreting as people stopping playing due to time to kill, rather than many other potential issues such as bugs, time to die, game crashes, map design, etc, etc. We've also seen it essentially stated in recent days that the TTK shift was implemented with Christmas and the holidays and new players in mind, basically meaning they wanted the game to be more forgiving for those new players. I don't feel the need to go into detail about this right now, but I'm sure you can understand why the existing Battlefield community isn't exactly pleased to hear that. What they wanted was essentially ignored so that new players can gain the benefit of not being killed so quickly. What happened to playing the game and getting better at the game and being rewarded for it? I just don't know. To add to that, I think also people are just worried that a change like this might stick even if they don't want it to, considering they didn't even ask for the change in the first place. It was also communicated to DICE in the alphas that his slower time to kill wasn't fun, and people also feel that these changes are being made for people who aren't even playing the game, which I totally agree with. I'm frustrated about that as well. And overall, there's a feeling that communication from the other side has been poor, although they have now released a statement essentially apologising for their communication and implementation of the patch, which is worth noting. But basically, I don't and can't really support this time to kill. It's upset the community, and it surely must either be reverted or heavily tweaked. The experimental TTK is a failed experiment. So I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, I'd really appreciate you hitting the like button, subscribing, and turning on notifications to stay up to date. And finally, feel free to join my Discord server in the description and my pinned comment. Now let's head over to the Board of Awesome for the epic people who support the channel on Patreon. That support helps me to do this every single day, so thank you so very much to everybody on here. If you want to join them on the Board of Awesome, the link to the Patreon page is in the description and my pinned comment. And with that all said, I'm GetGoodGuy, and I'll see you next time. Laters.